They came through the gate like they owned it. I heard the snap of steel long before I saw them. Bolt cutters slicing clean through the lock I'd installed with my own 2 hands. The one Grandpa always said was strong enough to hold back trouble until trouble got tired. But trouble didn't look tired that day. Trouble looked like 4 men in black tactical gear pretending to be cops, and the woman behind them, strutting like she was handing out cupcakes at a block party, was no other than Lorna Bishop, the HOA president of Ridge Hollow. Now, before you get the wrong idea, let me take you back a bit. 3 weeks earlier, I was just a carpenter. Just a guy who inherited his grandfather's old log cabin in a valley full of glass mansions, Range Rovers, and people who used vintage as a way to brag about expensive things looking old. I wasn't part of their world, and I sure wasn't trying to be. I just wanted to live where Grandpa had taught me how to whittle and fix things. In a place that still smelled like cedar and would smoke and everything decent in the world. The trouble started when I stepped on a creaky floorboard in the living room. It sounded hollow, not just old wood hollow, but empty space hollow. I pulled up the plank and found a ladder going straight down into what should have been crawl space. Instead, I climbed into a secret room, a whole hidden room filled with surveillance gear, screens, recorders, cameras, all aimed at Ridge Hollow's key intersections, driveways, and HOA buildings. It wasn't dusty. It wasn't old. This setup was recent, modern, and clearly intentional. There was a notebook on the desk, brown leather, my name scrawled across it in Grandpa's handwriting. Eli, if you're reading this, they've started again. You need to finish what I couldn't. Protect Ridge Hollow. Watch. Record. Expose. What followed were notes, detailed, dated, precise, tracking Lorna Bishop and a company called Veilstone Equity. My grandpa had documented secret meetings, property transactions, and a list of homeowners who'd voluntarily sold their homes for suspiciously low prices before disappearing from Ridge Hollow entirely. And just like that, my inheritance wasn't a house. It was a war. Lorna wasn't just power-tripping over lawn decorations and trash cans. She was part of something bigger, what Grandpa called Operation Hollow Sweep. An effort to drive out the long-timers, the modest folks who'd built Ridge Hollow before it had a country club, so their land could be snatched up and turned into luxury rentals. The next week, Lorna showed up with her clipboard and a thick manila envelope. "Mr. Eli Granger," she said, "too polite to be real. You're in violation of community codes, improper structural retrofits, inadequate septic compliance, and non-conforming entry access." She smiled like she was offering lemonade. "If not resolved in 30 days, the fines will exceed $80,000. "That's cute," I said, flipping through the papers. "You just make these up in Microsoft Word?" Her smile didn't twitch, but her eyes narrowed just enough to say, "I can make you disappear too." Turns out, every violation had been added to the HOA charter last week. They'd updated the rules just in time to hit me with them. I met with the so-called inspector listed on the paperwork, a guy named Blake Monroe, at a local diner, and I brought a recorder in my pocket. He fumbled through his sentences, kept checking his phone. Midway through our conversation, it buzzed, and he answered on reflex. "Yeah, Lorna, I'm with him now," he said. When he realized what he'd done, he went pale and excused himself to the restroom. That was all I needed. Between his voice on tape and Grandpa's archive of secret footage showing Lorna taking envelopes of cash and backdoor deals, I had a solid start. But I needed more. So I knocked on Miss Clara's door. She's 82, lives across the street, and has lived here longer than anyone else. She made tea while I explained what was happening. Then she nodded, stood up, and walked into the back room. Came back with a binder. 5 families, Eli, she said softly. 5 they pushed out. The Harpers, the Sotos, even the Powells. Told him they'd never win in court. Forced him to sell. Took their homes. Every single sale went to the same company, Veilstone. Miss Clara handed me a folded paper. "We're done watching. 15 of us chipped in. Legal fund. You've got backup now." And just like that, I wasn't alone. But Lorna wasn't done. Not by a long shot. 2 nights later, someone cut the power to my cabin. The next morning, my well pump was disabled, and the word "stop" was spray-painted across my front door in blood-red paint. That same afternoon, the sheriff showed up with a warrant, on account of Lorna's new claim that I'd been stalking and threatening her. She even handed over audio recordings of me making violent threats. Only problem? It wasn't my voice. At least not quite. It was like me, same cadence, same words I might use. But not me. The kind of fake a friend might not notice, but a grandkid who grew up learning Grandpa's idioms? I knew it was fabricated. My lawyer, Olivia Chong, a bulldog in court and a saint outside of it, brought in a forensic audio specialist. The verdict? AI-generated deepfake. Created from clips of my voice lifted off old town hall meetings and handyman videos I'd posted years ago. Lorna had tried to frame me using synthetic audio. And still, the sheriff held me in lockup for 48 hours. When I got out, I came home to find my cabin ransacked. Warrants said they were searching for surveillance equipment tied to harassment claims. My basement was cleaned out. Grandpa's entire system confiscated. But they didn't know I'd backed it all up to encrypted cloud storage 2 nights earlier. Lorna had gone too far. And some of my neighbors finally saw it. Miss Clara started what she called the Truth Campaign. Printed out property transfers, records, proof of coercion. Went door to door. By the end of the week, over 30 families joined. They wanted Lorna gone. But it was already too late for her. See, what I didn't know, what none of us knew, was that Lorna wasn't the top of the ladder. She was just a pawn. A puppet for a man named Russell Kane, CEO of Veilstone Equity. A guy who made his money buying communities on the edge of prosperity and bleeding them dry. Lorna owed him over $3 million in gambling debt from high-stakes poker in New Orleans. He owned her, and Ridge Hollow was how she was paying it off. How do I know? Because I heard the phone call. From the tunnel beneath her house. Yep, Grandpa built tunnels. Dug him back during Prohibition with his old man. Used them later to run wiring, cameras, even safe passageways when he needed to track meetings. One exit came out under the community center. Another ran straight to Clara's garage. And the one I used most? Right under Lorna's office. That night, she was sobbing, begging Russell for more time. Please, I can't make Eli Granger disappear like the others. He's not folding. The neighborhood's turning. And Russell? He was cold as stone. Handle it, or I handle you. That was all I needed. I reached out to Olivia, and together with Maria Cordero, a regional journalist who'd been digging into HOA abuse scandals, we contacted the FBI. Turns out, they'd been waiting for something like this. Operation Ridgefall. They called it. A multi-state probe into real estate acquisition fraud. All they needed was a smoking gun. Grandpa's cloud archive? It was a forest fire. So we set a trap. I called Lorna. Told her I was ready to sell. I'll sign whatever you want. Just get me out of Ridge Hollow. I made sure the call was recorded. The next day, at exactly 2 p.m., 3 black SUVs pulled up outside my cabin. 4 men jumped out. Badges, gear, the whole act. But real cops don't carry bolt cutters and signal jammers. They broke the gate. They kicked open my door. And right there, frozen in my living room, were 12 federal agents, badges drawn, cameras rolling. Russell Kane was in the 3rd SUV, barking orders into a radio. When the agents cuffed him, he looked around like he was still trying to figure out who had betrayed him. I stepped out of the tunnel, looked him straight in the eye, and said, "You should have read Grandpa's notebook." The whole thing was live-streamed. Clara posted it to the community board. Maria had news outlets waiting. Within hours, the FBI raided Veilstone offices in 5 states. Russell was arrested for racketeering, conspiracy, and, worst of all, suspicion of orchestrating the murder of Henry Granger. Yeah, Grandpa hadn't died of a heart attack. He'd been silenced. Lorna? She turned herself in. Made a deal. Testified. She paid $250. 000 in restitution to Ridge Hollow's displaced families and vanished from town. I became the new HOA president. But we changed the rules. Transparent books, rotating leadership, and a community defense charter written into our bylaws. Grandpa's cabin is now the Ridge Hollow Heritage Center, part museum, part war room, part community hall. We don't forget what happened here, and we don't let it happen again. But let me ask you something. Have you ever been made to feel powerless in your own home? Like the rules aren't made to protect you, but to control you? Do you think justice can ever really win when money's on the other side? Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Because stories like this, they don't end. They just wait for the next chapter. And sometimes, the hero isn't who you expect. It's just someone who refuses to let the bad guys win.